As announced after the game's launch, Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 has received its first significant patch, which takes the game to version 3.0. Now this patch comes with lots of updates and it's around 30 gigabytes on some platforms. Today we're going to take a look at the patch notes and give some opinions. Some new features include the hub Sparring Area. Now this is a new special arena on the battle barge that's available in Operations and the Eternal War. This is where players can compete in friendly PvP with players in their squad. Ultra-wide support for PC has also been added within this patch. You can also now play Operations in a private lobby, so you shouldn't get randomers joining your game. What's New and Message of the Day have also been added, as well as the option to reset custom colour presets. In terms of gameplay and balancing, the marking tool has been updated, and the patch also sees some improved responsiveness and comfort of the social wheel, with unnecessary objects being disabled. There's been several minor bug fixes to the Power Fist, Heavy Plasma, Med Stims and the Auxiliary Grenade Launcher, which include the likes of increased or decreased damage, improved healing and reloading. In terms of the campaign, enemy aggressiveness on veteran difficulty has been decreased, while the player's health on the same difficulty has been slightly reduced to compensate for this aggressiveness. Inhibiting restrictions were also lifted to bots, which allows them to be more helpful and effective, such as focus firing zoanthropes when the player attacks them. To reduce player annoyance, bots can also now finish off enemies instead of waiting for the player. Bots are now also allowed to help with the gargoyle objectives, and bots should also not get stuck or run out of ammo on weapons without a magazine. In terms of operations, there's been tweaked AI director and spawn rules of chaos enemies in the operations mode. This includes the reductions of the max number of Zangors with and without shields, cultist snipers and rubric marines with bolt guns or warp flamers. The perfect parry has been updated and now restores armour for killing Minoris, not only for countering their special attacks. Regarding block and fencing weapons, it's had its perfect parry fixed with a tweak to the animations. The assault class base ground and pound damage has been increased by 30%. Armour boost drops from destructible crates are now less common and the cooldown rate has been doubled. In terms of the PvP elements of the game, there's been an improved player spawn system, so this should make spawn killing more difficult. There's been a rework to Vanguard's grapnel launcher in PvP. Instead of a full stun, it'll now stagger an enemy and will slow him down drastically. The AI now has a reduced ability to stun lock enemies with ranged attacks across all characters. Accuracy of ranged enemies is reduced when attacking from off screen and when attacking melee engaged players. Regarding Hogmanauts and Zangors, melee damage now deals specific amounts of damage instead of removing one complete armour segment. Other enemies have also had some specific changes, and these include Zoanthropes, Termagants, Tyrannid Warriors, Rubric Marines, Zangors, Carnifex and the Hive Tyrant. If you want to look up the specifics of these, you can click on the link in the card above or in the video description below, which will take you to more details on this and all of the patch notes. Moving on to customization then, and there's been a fix to the icon colour for the Administratum Grey, Auric Armour Gold and Celestra Grey colours. There's been fixes to several issues with the default colours being wrong in some chapters. The Vanguard Relic Rite Grieve part now requires 29 victories instead of 36. A colour pattern called Greaves Pattern has been added, and this allows the player to customise both the bottom and the top half of the leg separately. In terms of maps, the patch fixes several issues that were preventing players from progressing in some levels. It also fixes a lot of minor collision issues. The dust storm in the ballistic engine operation has had its density and its duration tweaked. There's also been tweaked Helldrake fire timings on the bridge in Reliquary. Trials can also now be accessed via the Hypnomat in the armory. And finally then onto some general fixes that are across all of the game. There's been a fix to the bug where changing loadout mid-operation would restore your health. There's been improved jump pack ability responsiveness, fixed several issues in the trials, fixed a bug where in some rare cases controls would stop working after performing a finisher. The fixing of a bug where players do not receive armour data from the Hellbrute that was spawned through the Chaos Portal. Fixed a bug that causes Vanguard's Adrenaline Rush perk description to show 1% instead of the actual 10. Fixed the announcer spam in the Eternal War. There's also been fixes of the multiple ways of duplicating ammo in operations. The grapnel launcher has had a bug fixed where it could get cancelled if it was overlapped by small geometry. The tactical perk Emperor's Vengeance initially did not work with the plasma incinerator. This patch looks to fix that. The patch also sees a fix to a bug where several weapons could restore more than the actual contested health. Fixed several issues that were causing loss of saves, as well as the unidentified voice at the end of the story that was assigned to the wrong character. This has now been fixed and it should now play correctly. And as with all patches in every single game, there's been lots of minor UI fixes and improvements, animation fixes and localization fixes. Okay, so that rounds off the patch notes. There's quite a lot to take in there. Now, it could be argued that with so many changes to the game so soon after launch, that the game could be problematic or very buggy. It could also be argued that it's unfinished. However, from my experience, I haven't noticed anything off with the game. It plays fine and I very much enjoyed the campaign, operations and the gameplay in general. Also, some of the bigger changes in this patch were announced during the recent hotfix, so players were expecting them to drop. It's also nice to see the sparring area added for players who maybe aren't quite as familiar, just to practice and get used to the game. Of course, there may be things that have been added or changed that haven't been covered in the patch notes. If you spot any, I'd love to hear about them so we can compare the versions a little bit more. There'll be continued coverage of Space Marine 2 on the channel, so stay tuned for when those videos are released. But until then, some you might be interested in are on your screen shortly.